Let me share.
Oh, let me share.
I sent the request.
Okay, I shared.
Okay. Okay, are you guys able to see? Okay, so I'm Jordan and that's Bria, and we did the impact of organizational structures and racial diversity in entertainment. So we explored a few different themes. We were exploring decision-making power structures, who holds the authority, who of what gets funded, produced, and distributed in entertainment in America. We focused on how concentrated power can limit diverse perspectives with early mid-level career structures, who shapes the growth of these structures of hiring, mentorship, and promotion practices. We kind of explore a little bit through real life experience through surveys and research of how unequal access in these stages restricts long-term advancement. We focus on creative autonomy and risk structure of who gets the freedom to tell these stories and take creative risks. So how do you feel? Oh, wait, sorry. So how do you feel that? So how do you feel? So how do you So feel we that- did in real life field research. We did a couple interviews of people as well as conducted question research. And we used lived experience with interviews of these subjects. And we're going to play a couple videos for you guys. You've seen diverse. So how do you feel that you've seen diverse roles in leadership or lower? So would you say that most of the roles in the top are either a certain race or a certain ethnicity or a certain way somebody looks, it can be based on weight and gender? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it depends, and maybe I'm coming from a.
Oh my God. So how do you feel that you've seen diverse roles in leadership or lower? So would you say that most of the roles in the top are either a certain race or a certain ethnicity or a certain way somebody looks, it can be based on weight and gender? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it depends, and maybe I'm coming from a place of just like of privilege saying this, but I do work with a lot of very diverse
Yeah.
crews on set.
Yeah.
There's many times where I'm like the only person that looks like me and has my background that's on set, whether that be race or gender. It I think that there's a lot in New York City, especially. There's a lot of you can find your community. I think no matter who you are, even based on your personality type.
Yeah.
So not to say that start you may not be able to start off there.
Yeah.
I think that you are able to find a tight knit group of people that look like you.
Feel like it's tougher in like small communities. I think I told you about in Florida.
Yeah.
You go from New York to Florida, like you're like,
Yeah,
whoa, this is a lot different. There is still those barriers and still those systemic things, like whether it's, as you guys know, maybe it's a racial relationship. So the things here, we don't see that as much. And when you're in New York, you're like, you don't question it. It's just normal.
Everyone's different.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
not, whether it's gender identity, there's so many things here. It's a lot different in the South. So I definitely get that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I have a follow-up question. For the music and film, what kind of music like are you in and what kind of film work do you do?
So music, I'm a rapper. And then with film, I work primarily in the commercial world. So any sort. I mean, I've done things with Amazon. I've done things with Apple. I've done like much smaller shoots. I'm on a shoot this week with It Cosmetics.
Oh wow.
That's fun.
It's a product.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah,
I
wow.
think it was last week. We did something with Samsung, Google, and Devil Wears Prada. It was like a
Yeah.
collaboration shoot.
That's fun.
We did Guinness last week as well. Yeah. So there's no shortage of clients, but mostly in the commercial world, which is a little bit different than film because um commercial I'm only booked for 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be booked for 5 days.
Yeah.
Like a TV show goes on. I have a friend that shoots on TV. I have a few friends that shoot on TV, but they're booked for like 2 or 3 months out at a time. You know what I mean? I really have to stay hustling. And
Are you freelance or do you work for like a studio or something or like an agency?
I'm freelance, but there are producers that I work with consistently. Like these producers I'm working with in cosmetics, they do actually it's a female producer, female owned business. She owns her own business, and usually 9 times out of 10, like the majority of the crew are all female, like crew
Yeah.
members. You know?
Cool.
She just knows me.
Oh, I love that. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So I guess Bria, if you want to go on to another question, if you want to.
Yeah, I'm looking at the question. So when you are doing different kinds of work, how do you ensure that there's diversity in the work that you do?
Let's see.
If that's like
The last one.
if that's like who you work with, or if sorry, I didn't mean to jump around. I just like
No,
that's
you're
the
good,
question I'm seeing on my list. So yeah, like in terms of like, are you working with people, which you kind of already explained, who are like more diverse, or are you like creating work that is for like different groups of people, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So when I'm I'm unfortunately not in a place where I'm hiring people in film for the most part. Every now and then I do get the chance to like, hey, do you know anyone else who wants to work the shoot, and I'll bring them on. But I do think that it is important to because you're all freelance, it's all about like your network, and I think your network is your net worth, right? That's like it's
Yeah, it is.
kind of cliche, but
Yeah.
it's not just about like okay, like I know more people, I'm gonna make more money, it opens up more doors for me, but you know more people and you have more access to different like walks of life, and you have more access to people who are not necessarily like you didn't grow up the same way as you, or maybe identify differently as you, or look differently as you. And I think that that's very important because
Yeah.
everyone has their own unique perspective and understanding and outlook on things, that it's like it makes you richer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, it does. It definitely does. And even like as a business owner and somebody in the creative, I feel like when you look around the room and if you can see somebody that looks different than you, you're already kind of in a space where it feels comfortable. It can't just be somebody looks different and they're in the space. Everybody has to feel that comfort and that the equality of each other, because then we're just in rooms where people feel uncomfortable or people feel underrepresented or marginalized. So it's definitely really important to have that space feel authentic and feel comforting. So I feel like you kind of touched on everything. I think if there's anything else you'd like to share with us, or just anything motivational, any factor, anything you want, any last words?
Um, yeah.
So that was kind of our first conversation, and it leads us into diversity on screen doesn't equal equity behind it. And if Bria, you want to take over this slide.
Yeah, of course. So as we just saw, Cody, he works in film and in music. So first looking at the film industry, we were kind of looking at who leads in the film industry and who takes a lot of these big roles. UCLA has done this every year for the past several years. They do all of this research about how racially like diverse the film industry is. And as of this year, 2.3 out of 10 lead actors in films are people of color. 2.2 out of 10 film directors are people of color. 2 out of 10 writers are people of color. And about 64.8% of all acting roles are filled by white actors. So as you can see, the people who are, in the films and getting these roles, it's really hard as a person of color to be getting these roles because they're really outnumbered by white people. And also, who is making film deals? Most of the people making deals are white men. So the people at the top are historically and have consistently been white men. And then a lot of these roles in acting and all those other spaces in film are also filled by white people as well. So yes, the six of the top 10 films and 12 of the top 20 films last year um, were at the global box office featured a cast that was more than 30% BIPOC. So that's also a number where kind of and we see the same thing in music on the next slide, but while a lot of the people who lead are white, but a lot of the big films feature people of color, like the ones who are getting a lot of people coming, which just kind of highlights why we need more people of color in these films, because people really like them, and a lot of the top films do have a handful of people of color. It's just overall a lot of the people are white, but the ones that do well oftentimes do have people of color in lead roles, in acting roles. And then so going over to the music industry, we see a similar thing. USC did a study about the music business, and at 37 major and independent music companies, 92.1% of top roles, this is CEOs, people at the very top, were filled by white people. And about half of all roles that are up there in the right below C-suite, or I guess technically still in the C-suite, vice presidents, GMs, VPs, are filled by white men as well. So we see that again in the music industry that the leaders are white men. But what's interesting here is a lot of the popular artists are people of color. So in the music industry, it kind of shows that, and in films, is that we value white people leading all of these institutions, but we value people of color in our media. Like we want them to kind of, like be the face of it. They can be singers, they can be actors, they can do all of this stuff, but we don't want people of color leading.
Yeah, and I actually want to add before I go into the next slide, a little bit of research we did was that the revenue of the music industry was so high, but the pay rate for the artist was not disproportionate for people of color. And that leads us into our next interview. We'll probably do only half of this one because this one's a bit long, of journalism and copywriting, and somebody who lives in that experience in those spaces as well, is that is a top sector in the industry for money making in New York and local areas. Even though it should be structural with leadership and decision making upon the entire industry sector, it's very high level where white professionals, despite it's supposed to be diverse, they still make decisions for smaller creators. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this interview for you guys.
Here in area. I'm 27 and I'm currently a freelance writer. I work as a copywriter and journalist. And I love that. So who makes creative decisions in your project? So the work that you create? Sure. So in my own time, I run like a mood board, Instagram, dedicated to like small fashion brands and cultural movements. And me and a friend of mine make our own decisions on that. But in my professional work as a journalist, because I am freelance, I get to kind of pick the stories that I want to write. Although there's always an editor editing my work, I always get to decide what kind of story I want to write, which is part of the reason why I am freelance. And as a copywriter, while I am a freelance contractor, I do work for a company that sends out creative briefs, and I do have to adhere to that. And I don't make as many creative decisions there because I have creative directors to answer to. No, that makes sense, 100%. So do you feel like you see diverse roles in both lower positions and high level positions in not necessarily freelance in your formal position that you work? I would say I'm fortunate because my team does have some diversity, but other teams around us don't. In terms of age diversity, no, I am the youngest person. Which thing accomplishment? Yeah, well, it is like it's a little different because there's also like a communication gap sometimes, like having to explain what a TikTok means for like 5 minutes. And like, there's like nuances with like the kind of things that I present. Like if I pitch something and they're not like up to date with the latest TikTok trend, I kind of have to break it down on why it's important and why we should capitalize on it. Yes. What was the other part of your question? No, that's perfect. Thank you. I think you covered it for that one. That's good. Okay. Do you feel that your race, identity, or cultural background has impacted your opportunities and creative voice based on where you're located, both of your industries, your fields, whatever you want to share? If yes, how? Yeah, I would say explicitly, like no doubt, my voice, how I tell stories, and my identity are always going to be related. I can't afford for them not to be. I can't say that I've been passed up on an opportunity because of that. I don't know, it could have been the case. Worse. But I definitely use that to my advantage, and like being someone who comes from a multicultural background, I'm able to tell different types of stories. And like perfect example, like one day I needed to write something for a silk scarf, and they wanted to like talk about like how many ways a silk scarf could be used, and like no one was suggesting hair. And like for me, culturally, silk scarves go on hair. So that was like kind of fun way, like I can insert my identity on a day-to-day basis, even the smallest way. And make it relatable to other people who use it the same way. Exactly. So exactly. Yeah. That's why it's important for there to be diverse roles in every industry. Because no matter what, you want to see people and relate that look like you, act like you, and engage in the same activities and your upbringing. So that's definitely important. Now, when you think of, let's talk about structure a little bit, if you don't mind. What structural changes do you think in the industry, your industry specifically, are needed for those authentic moments and stories to be shared? I would say the obvious for everyone, more funding towards creative careers, more funding towards art, but also just exposure. I think it's so important to have mentors and people in your life that tell you like, hey, this is an option. I didn't know being a copywriter was a thing until after I got a master's degree in journalism. Like I didn't know like I can get paid to write Instagram captions. Like that just wasn't something that someone like me was supposed to do with your creative voice. It's like a lot of my ideas and like how I can use my writing professionally was like telling hard stories, like investigating corruption, like a lot of emotional labor, physical labor. Like I didn't know that there were other ways to write that like people have been doing forever, and marketing careers in general. I didn't know anyone that was in marketing. So it's very different. It's a different world. And I think if someone would have had that conversation with me, when I was in high school, like there are like different careers you can strive towards. And there was always a push for STEM, especially for young women of color. Like you should go into STEM, you should go to STEM. I totally understand that. They're absolutely underrepresented in that department. But for me, for someone who, once we get past 2+2, it's it's a problem for me. It's not something that I was passionate about.
And
Yeah.
if I knew there, yeah, if I knew there was something besides like just basic English communications, there are like so many paths a creative career can take you down.
Yeah.
I would have jumped on it way sooner.
Yeah, no.
So I definitely want to just cut it there because I think that really leads us into the structures that we were really talking about and talking about how these structures are not set up correctly for people to be aware what roles they can get and how to get them. And so it leads into our conversation of uneven distribution and power with local barriers in creative sectors. In smaller markets, entering the industry is often, most people mention that it's finance. So we also conducted a survey with questions written, and one participant, Alexandra, shared, getting into this industry isn't cheap. The barriers start with not having the economic resources to get into the rooms you would need to build the network that can help you succeed. Bria, if you want to touch a little bit, or you want me to cover.
Yeah, no, and then in addition to that, a lot of, in the industry, it is who you know. So,
Yeah.
to go off of what Alexandra said in our survey, it costs a lot of money for a lot of people of color to get into these spaces. And a lot of people of color don't have money to access and be able to get into these jobs because a lot of the jobs are low pay. So a lot of people can't take low paying jobs if they don't have family who can help support them. And so
Yeah.
that is a really big issue in the entertainment industry. And then in addition to that, it is who you know that and that helps you get jobs. And oftentimes people that have more money and more status, that are maybe outside of people of color are able to maybe have more access to these opportunities
And even
and be able
access
to
to
meet people.
education.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that that's really good. Thank you for sharing that, Bria. I do feel like to touch on what she said, the access with the financials to education is also a leading factor because educate most of these roles, entry level roles, when you look online, they want you to have experience or education, and that may not be accessible for everyone. We have one short video. I know we're short on time. We'll just do a couple more seconds of this and go into our data and then wrap it up.
And diverse stories to be told. So right now, I personally feel like there's a big shift happening where everything is kind of just becoming like homogenous online. You see all these. I was talking with someone the other day and how like the whole internet knows like 6, 7, and all these other like cultural like memes right now. But when I was in high school, which is like a long time ago, like all the slang that we knew was like localized, right?
Yeah.
So everything's kind of becoming one. You have all these businesses, these entertainment conglomerates that are buying up the next company. And I think that one change that's going to happen is I think this bubble is going to pop, and that uh, people are going to reject how similar everything is. You know what I mean? We're not going to want to see the same celebrities on TV. We're not going to want to see the same artists who have been pushed to us on radio and on TikTok. And I know so many small artist accounts that claim to be for small artists. And look, get your bag right. I know they're getting checks from like record labels, but like will be a small artist page and they're posting about like Tyler the Creator or Little Yachty. And it's like, yo, they made it. You know what I mean? Like, let's focus on the smaller creators here. Yeah. And so I think that it is going to essentially, at some point, the scale is going to tip over the other way. And there's going to be a lot more interest in smaller stories, even in film. And I think that that will kind of garner more interest. It's going to be cool to be like in on the niche things, the things that people don't really know again. And I think that that's one change.
So, and as I stated, we did a study with a qualitative sample of questions. There was about 7 questions, and we have 75% of responders emphasized a who you know or networking structure for creative advancement for them to get into these higher roles, better pay, better opportunities, and even just be in the creative industry in general. 100% of responders said that location was a structural factor that may impact their creative abilities in their role. We analyzed based on music, dance, writing, film, and media, like digital media. 50% of responders felt they have decision-making power in their projects. That's only half of the people. So, 55% of responders rely on unstable creative work structures. 100% of responders mentioned structural inequalities and lack of opportunities in their responses. And 6 people stated they experienced or witnessed institutional gatekeeping. And I think that's it. I don't know if you want to add anything, Bria. I hope you guys enjoyed.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm looking at some of the questions here. I don't know if we have really time to address a lot of this, but I just wanted to say that I think that we're talking about race and someone asked, like, isn't white a color and is white? Um,
Bria, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We have a process that
oh,
we
sorry.
follow. that we don't take questions in the plenary right now
Got it.
because there are papers that went ahead of you. And so we will break out into 3 groups and discuss these and